For our first Moodle session, we have another one after this and a couple more coming up. This session is on completion tracking, which was, for a lot of people, something they were quite excited about with Moodle 2. So before we get too far, I'll introduce yourselves. My name's Chad. I'm the one on the right in the picture with the big nose. Ben is my co-presenter here. He's the one on the left. And we look just as good even at Sunday morning, 8 a.m. So I put some faces to the name. Now, we work for an organization in Canada called Lambda Solutions. They are an official Moodle partner. So we're really happy to kind of share this stuff. If you need help or assistance, you're in North America with hosting, customization, training, consulting, any Moodle needs, we can sort you out. So that's who we are. That's what we do. This session on activity completion is something that we actually did for the BC Moodle users group, which is sort of a new group, mostly through the BC campus. But Todd, if you're not familiar, and other people, it's an open group, so you can come on in and join us, learn, share, complain, get assistance. I just dropped the URL in the chat box there. So this isn't our first time doing this session on completion tracking. So for those of you that don't know, completion tracking is a feature in Moodle 2 that essentially tracks and reports on a student's progress in a course. You can use it to see if a student's met recommended prerequisites, to slowly release activities as you go through the course. And it works on two levels. It works within your course. That's called activity completion, to see how people have completed activities as they go through. But it also works on a course level to see if people have actually completed the course set on some prerequisites that you have enabled. Now, before we start looking at how to set this up, how to use it, just some value. You know, why is this important? Why would I want to consider using this in my Moodle course? I found for students, this is a big game changer for them. You may be familiar with the term. I've heard it a few times at this conference. Let's call it an abundance of resources on a long page. This can allow, to see, where did I get to? Where am I at? Kind of keeps your track. Not all of our students' life revolves around our Moodle course that we invest so much time and energy in creating for them. So to kind of go into the course and quickly see where I finished, where I've gone into, and what's next ahead of me, really makes it a lot easier to kind of get back up to speed when they kind of come in your course instead of hunting through a list of resources and materials. From the teacher side, big value would be the fact that not only are you sure they're on the right thing, they know where they're at, but you can use completion tracking to give gradual access to your resources. And I've seen actually a few different things in this iMoot about this. Some gamification of learning that was kind of based on completion tracking and slowly unlocking things. The progress bar I saw in our session, which wasn't about progress bar at all, but it kind of went there, was, again, I think it is based off completion tracking. So you can really use this to ensure that students don't access resources until they've kind of built a foundation of knowledge, completed other activities. So make sure that, when they get to the next resource, it's because they've completed things and have a level of understanding on previous ones. If you aren't in education, if you are a business using it for staff development, really easy way to see, has someone gone through the orientation? Has someone done the safety training before they use a certain material? So it's a quick way and an easy way to ensure that as people, your staff come aboard, they are adequately trained and have access to the materials as you expect. So we talked about what completion tracking is, talked about why completion tracking is valuable. The question now is, how would we turn it on our Moodle site? Ben, do you want to share your screen?
Sure. I'll share my screen here, and I've logged in as two different users, so it might take a second or two to switch from one user to the other.
Great. Just as Ben gets this set up, guys, we are pretty conversational in tone. You have questions, you miss something along the way, just hit us up in the chat. That's great. You don't need to hold your questions for a magical period at the end. We can dialogue with you as we go through.
Okay, I tried to share my screen before and it didn't share the application, so I'm just going to try and share the whole screen. So just give me a second here.
Okay. I have the little Adobe spinning wheel of thank you for your patience on mine right now.
Yeah, so do I.
Okay. I have your desktop. Yeah, that's the thing. When you bring up Adobe Connect, yeah, I'll moderate kind of the chat and stuff, Ben, if you just want to steer that. And
Okay, perfect.
it looks all right. It looks a touch small for me. Maybe give it the Control plus plus a couple times just so the text size is eyeball size.
All right, let's see. How does that work? Is it a little bit bigger for you?
That looks good for me. How about you guys? Can you see that okay?
Okay, sounds good. So I'm logged in as an
So
administrator on this account here. And if I were to enable completion tracking, I have to first do that at the site level. So I'm just going to go to my settings block and underneath there, site administration, and then go to advanced features. From here, you'll be able to find that there's a number of advanced features that you can enable on the site. And the two settings that we want to enable are completion tracking, and we also want to enable, of course, the conditional activities. So these two items here that have already been checked off. So once I put those check marks in there, I'm just going to click on the Save Changes button, and these features are now enabled on the site level for Moodle. The next step is, of course, using them in certain areas.
okay, so when you set it up on your course, it's not automatically it's turned on every resource. You still have to do that at a resource level.
That's correct. Yeah. Once you turn it on at the site level, the next step, of course, is to go into the course settings, which is I'm back into my course here, and I'm going to go and edit the settings. You'll find that there's an area that you have to first enable it for your course, and this is for the completion tracking portion. The activity logging is going to be enabled automatically for any activity in your course. So I'm just going down here, and we see that there's a student progress, and it's enabled, and there's a few settings in here where it's not enabled. And then you have the option of completion tracking begins on enrollment, which means they'll start from the day the student's in the course versus when they start to go through and complete activities. So there's just a few options there for configuration, but once you've set that, all you have to do is click the Save Changes, and then that should be enabled in the course.
Okay, great. So you set it up at the site level to kind of enable it, and then you turn it on in the specific course. Um, then from here, how would I set it up on an activity?
Okay, well, I have my course set up here, and I'm going to first turn editing on so I can access my activities. And I'm going to go into this first activity here and just edit that. So we see that we have our name, our description for the resource, what the content is, and then scrolling down here, we see that there's a field for restricting access and also activity completion. And the restrict access allows you to set criteria for restricting access to this activity. The completion tracking area down here allows you to set criteria for specifying when this activity is considered complete. And if I were to look through the list here, I have a couple items to choose from for the restricted activity options. So I could specify that they have to complete this online text assignment with a passing grade of at least 80% and no higher than 101%. So it's just something to keep in mind is when you are entering these things, you have to choose the grade that's 1 point value usually higher than the one that you're allowing in your assignment.
In the
So the
activity completion
activity,
thing there, it says something about it's locked. We have to unlock something. What's that about?
yeah, that's correct. Since this is an activity that already had activity completion enabled, it has the stats in there. And if we wanted to change these configurations, so the criteria that's set for when this activity is considered complete, we need to unlock that because there's some users have gone through. So as soon as the user goes through and completes some of the activities, that activity is locked. That criteria is locked, and you have the option of unlocking it and resetting it. But the caveat to doing that is that you'll have all that information wiped out. So if I unlock this, our test student will lose his progress, but that's okay. We like to make him work. And if I just click that. And when I do that, you'll see that there's a number of options down here now available. And since this is just a page that's informational, it doesn't have a lot in there, but you can specify how this is going to be checked off as being complete. So there's a couple options here of indicating that this is not part of completion tracking, that it is part of completion tracking and students can mark it off themselves. And or showing this activity is complete when conditions are met. Since this is informational, it might not be that important. It's not crucial. We'll leave this so that students can mark this off as being complete when they've gone through and read it. The nice thing is if it's an information piece, they can kind of break it up into chunks, or they can continue to read it, and when they feel that they've understood the information, they can always check it off, and it kind of gives them that visual. But we'll touch on that a little bit later.
Okay,
I'll just
so it's
have
not
that done.
always I can just go through the course and check it complete. You can actually set up some conditions around it.
Yeah, that's correct. So I'll just save this item here, and we can jump back into our course outline. So for that activity, we set that it's considered complete once a student reviews it. I'm just going to enable that so it's visible to the world, to the student.
Great, great. Okay, so did you have a student account logged in another pane or a web browser or something there, Ben?
Certainly do. So I'll go in and I'll just refresh this area here. So this is my student account, and it's a little larger here for you. We're logged in as our student. Just make this a little bit bigger, and
There we
beside
go.
our activity, did it just catch up?
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
it's
There
okay.
we go. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So I'm logged in, and you'll see that we have our list of resources here. And for that first resource that we set, we have the option of checking this off. It shows right here, there's this little dotted box. So when we go in, we can actually mark this off as complete whenever we want to. You'll notice that there's a couple other boxes here that are indicating it's not complete. And for these white boxes, these are set different criteria, different means. So there's different metrics to when this is considered complete. But if we were to go in and view this as a student, I guess I hid that activity actually. Just go back to my administrator account and I'll refresh that. There we go. So that should be visible now to my student. I'll just jump back to my student account. Refresh this page. But if I were to go in, I should be able to check that off as being complete. Oh, looks like it's not.
It's
That's
just
because I set the
stubborn.
criteria
It's
wrong. Yeah, so I've
oh,
essentially
because
locked
yeah, you said
myself out
that's
by doing
criteria.
that.
Right, right, right.
So I'd have to go through a
Well,
certain
let's
set
let's
of activities now. Yeah.
Well, yeah, a good segue onto that, I suppose. How about the PowerPoint? Like, can Moodle track if I just even download a resource?
Yeah, it can. So as soon as I click into this, this criteria has been set to allow or to option, or it's been set to mark off once I've gone through and viewed that activity or downloaded it. So it should realize that I've done that once I refresh this information here on the page. You'll see that this has now been marked off as being complete for our presentation. And hopefully that
There,
visual comes
there we
across in
go.
a
There we
moment.
go. So that one would be set up on that one would be set on unlock when you view the resource or something like that, or under the activity completion, be shown as
That's
once you access the resource.
yeah, that's
Okay.
correct.
Uh, Todd has a question here. I'm not sure if I know the answer. Um, about someone had John Inger's condition of game course in the iMoot and found that even though I viewed it and viewed the lock material, it didn't unlock until I refreshed my browser. Does the activity tracking typically, do the checks automatically appear? Or do you got to kind of re-render the page?
You do have to
Like
re-render
I
the
think when you
page.
download the
How
PowerPoint there. Yeah, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I had to refresh the page before that information shows up. So it does have a locking mechanism in there, but when it updates for any activity that you've gone to that doesn't have the page refreshing whenever you go and reload the topic outline or the weekly outline, it won't show the updated locks until you actually refresh or reload the page. Just because in the Moodle system, it checks off as okay, it's being complete, but it doesn't show that information until the page has been refreshed.
Yeah, so like if the activity completion was like, once you go into like a resource in your Moodle site, when you came back to the page, it would show up. But something like an external file download, where it's just pulling a file and nothing actually changes on that web page, then doesn't track it. But if you click somewhere else and then came back, it would show it.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, hope that makes sense, Todd. So I remember when I started playing with it, when I went into the form, there was a whole bunch more of options for completion tracking. It wasn't just, student mark or on download. How does the form work from them inside, Ben?
Okay, well, as we've seen, I'm just going to move back to our administration screen here. Um, as we've seen, some activities have different criteria or different options for grading. Some have certain activities that you can go and do and perform. So in the forms, for example, you have students posting to forums, replying to forum posts. The forum can be a graded activity, so there's a lot more options for setting completion tracking and options for when this activity is considered complete. So we have our form set up here. I'm just going to scroll through the page here slowly so you can see some of the settings. The form is set up fairly standard. But then when we go down, we do see that we have our form being set up so it's a rating and it has a satisfactory scale being used. And then we go down to finally down here. We have our activity completion that we can set. And in this case, we're going to choose that this activity is complete when the conditions are met versus having it so it's student-based. So the students are going through there. And we see that there's a few more options here. So, we can set it so the student has to view this activity, that, there's grading required, that they require a certain amount of forum posts, so they have to reply maybe once before this is complete, or maybe 5 times before this is considered complete. There's a required discussion, so if the student's required to start a discussion, you could always set that in there. In this case, I'll just mark that off. And of course, there's replies to posts. In this case, I'll just drop that down to 2, because I want to be easy on the students on a Sunday.
Well, that's pretty cool though. So the completion tracking, you can actually force certain activities in your form. So you're not complete until, you've replied to a couple people. So kind of enforcing that engagement and that collaboration between students.
That's correct, yes. So if I were to save these changes and go back to our student account here, if I were to just enter into this and go back, you'll see that the status hasn't changed. I'm not considered complete for this activity, but if I were to go in, I think the criteria was to view it and also reply. So if I were to go in here and just reply to Chad, I should have the completion status being checked off or marked. So I'll just reply really quick here and scroll down.
Okay, so Lynn's got a question in the chat, and it's a pretty good one. The student doesn't
Sure.
automatically know this, do they? Or would that be something that you, as the designer of your course, says this isn't complete until you do this twice and access this once, sort of thing?
Um, it's something that the student may not know inherently. It is an option sometimes to set what criteria is required before an activity can be, as we can see here, there's this online text and it's kind of grayed out right now. And it specifies what activity needs to be completed before this one becomes unlocked. For the completion criteria itself, for when this activity is considered complete, I'd usually recommend putting instructions on your weekly outline or topic outline here, maybe at the start of your course, to provide them some information, like some activities have certain things that need to be done in the activity before it's considered complete, and provide that information to them, just so they have some background on what's required.
That's a good idea, Ben, to
And
try to just make it
yeah,
clear up front, but that's kind of cool that you can actually tag that in the resource in the back end too and choose to show that or not.
yeah. The other thing is I usually provide some of those instructions or directives in the assignment description itself, which is possible to do too.
Okay, so yeah, you definitely have some onus to communicate that in some way, but you could go about it a few different ways.
Yeah, a lot of
Okay,
times the activity is fairly
sorry, go ahead,
straightforward.
Ben.
It's just a lot of times the activity is fairly straightforward too. So it's just, is it graded? Is okay, it's been graded, and has the student received a certain grade? Okay, it's considered complete. So it's much more simpler in most cases, but for some activities where it's a lot more complex with its actions, you may want to specify what's required of the student so they have that knowledge up front.
Okay, I remember you were telling me the other day that you can actually use this in conjunction with Gradebook to make sure that it's not complete until you receive a certain mark. But yeah, it's going Gradebook and kind of set something up. How does that work?
Okay, that's something that we'll show you by going back into the administration here. And we have our quiz, and we also have an uploaded text assignment. So if I were to go in and just edit this online text really quick here, scroll down just to show you the first part. So we have our uh, activity completion again, and right now we have it so students must view this activity before it's considered complete. Um, but we could also check off that a grade is required for this activity to be considered to be complete. And if we wanted to specify the grade that needs to be set or that needs to be met, we have to first save this. And then we want to go into our grade book. So just access our grades. I'll change our view to the full view. And this is where I can go to access our online text assignment. Right now it's just grayed out, but what we want to do is we just want to edit that. So go across here to our action icons. I'm just going to edit this item. And when we do the editing for this item in the gradebook, you'll see that there is some specific information here. And specifically the one we're looking at is the grade to pass. So when we set this, this is the actual grade that they need to achieve before this activity is considered complete. So let's see, 75% for them before this activity is considered complete. just save that. Now that's been entered in. So that's how you'd set a grade for a criteria for when this activity is considered complete.
Okay, so that's just ensures, so now it won't be complete until your teacher or your for the student until your teacher goes through and actually grades it and marks it. So you can actually kind of
That,
create that kind of checkpoint.
that's correct, yes.
Okay. So okay, I think I got a good handle now of how to kind of set up some of the basics of activity tracking from, just student access to activity, what did I do until get marked. But I understand too that this can actually be used to unlock and open resources as we go forward.
That's correct, yes. Um, so as we see here, I'm just going back to my student account, and I'll just refresh this page so I see something updated. Uh, we have certain activities in here that aren't accessible, of course, until certain criteria has been met. So that hasn't been released yet to the students until I've gone through and I've completed my online text. And my online text, of course, requires me to review the Moodle outline. So we've kind of locked this in a loop for the student. So we've essentially locked that one out by setting it so each of these activities requires some viewing. So that's a good example of what not to do when configuring this. But if we wanted to, we could also make it so it's following more of a linear progression of the student has to go and complete this one before this one's complete. So that's just some settings there that need to be adjusted. But it is possible to do, and as you can see, hopefully it comes across on your screen that these items are slightly grayed out, and it shows, of course, the text that's being displayed there, indicating what needs to be required and before it's accessible.
Okay, so those have basically been set that until a condition's done, you can't access them. But right now, they're conditional on each other. So you got to be a bit careful in terms of how you go forward with these to make sure that you don't, because I think when you choose the condition, it just sorts them alphabetically as opposed to the chronological order in your course. So you gotta be a bit careful with that. I've been here and I've done that too, and it can create a confusing learning experience for the end users.
That's right. So I'm just going to remove that completion right there. Again, if this ever does happen, you can go into your course, go into your activity, and always edit it and change what's entered in this restricted access area to allow or disallow access to this activity based on that criteria. So I'll just save that.
Okay, so you go to the future activity that you want to hide, and then under restrict access, you would choose the conditions for it to based on previous activity tracking on different activities.
That's correct. And I'll just bring up this online text again just to provide a little more information on that. So we have our restricted access here, and we can make it so it's based on a grade condition. So we have our form of introducing ourselves, and we have specified that an 80 to 100 and 1% is required for that activity. But that's a grade condition. If we look at some of the other options, there's activity completion. So that's waiting for a certain activity to be marked off as being complete. So in this case, we can choose from any list, and as you mentioned, it's alphabetical, so do keep that in mind. But going through, you can make it so a certain activity has to have its completion status marked off before being accessible.
And that right below that says before activity can be accessed. That was what I think Lynn was asking a little bit about earlier too, wherein it shows underneath where it says restricted, right? So you can convey that information there of kind of Moodle settings that need to be configured.
Two options for you there too to choose from. One is you can show it completely grayed out, and with some of the restricted information. Of course, the other is to hide the activity completely. So if you don't want it to be visible to the student at all, you can make it so it's set that way. And then once the student goes through and completes certain activities, they'll start to see other activities become available to them. There's two visual options there to choose from.
Okay, okay, okay. I think I got it. Um, so these sort of things, you could almost set this up a bit like kind of a choose your own adventure sort of thing, where based on certain activities being done, future things unlock, and then kind of lead people down certain paths based on that, eh?
Yeah, you certainly could. And with being able to set grade conditions and specify that if the student achieves a grade of between a certain mark, let's say you wanted to release extra study notes to a student based on a score that they had, and say that score was, if they've scored between 0 and 50%, release certain activity to them. You can release more study notes to them that way. So it does give you some power there to um, do some guided learning and maybe send the students through an extra learning path before they are able to go back to the main stream of your course.
Oh, great. Todd has a question. Yvonne's commented, um, pedagogically, is it better to design the whole course first and then come back and kind of set these conditions? Um, or do you kind of set these conditions up as you go?
Uh, I've seen some people do the ad hoc setting up the conditions, and usually it's a good idea to do a little bit of planning beforehand to figure out what activities are crucial or important to you and need to be finished for this course to be considered complete, and have that map or that plan, and then go through your course and set that completion criteria at that point. Sometimes you might want to do the whole course and then go in selectively, but I find that's usually a good idea to have a plan beforehand because that usually does save some time when you're entering in the activity for the first time too. If you know that it has to be set a certain way, it does save some time in the future. So it's a good idea to always plan before.
Yeah, I would. I think I'd pretty much echo that. I do find that sometimes as I'm designing it, my original plans get modified. So I usually do a scrub pass kind of at the end, and I think that I would probably leave it towards the later side too, just to stop myself from having to. Did I set that one up? Didn't I? But I guess it depends on the person too a little bit, right? You might have very specific things. Okay, I know this choice is going to unlock these set of resources, so maybe set that up. But yeah, I think it's easier to kind of to build your course and then to build the path through it, so to speak.
Mhm.
Um, okay, so we're getting a pretty good feel here on this activity tracking, but we set up something at the course level. Can you actually check if the course is completed?
Yeah, there are some options for that, and I'm just going to quickly switch to where are they there? So we're on our administration page, and there's something that you can set for the course to be considered complete. And if we go to our completion tracking, I'll just click into this area. You'll see here that here's all the activity um, options or completion options for this course, and you can actually specify when this course is considered complete. So going down, there's some options on how you want to allow completion tracking to be checked off or marked off by a manager or teacher. So we see these settings here. But going down, you see that there's all the activities that have completion tracking criteria already set. So this is good to do after the course has been enabled, all the activities have been enabled with completion tracking, but you can go through and specify that when all these activities are complete, these certain activities here, that this course itself is considered complete. And just going to go down, there's also a course grade, a total grade there, and we can just enable that so the student has to achieve a grade of 65% or higher for the course to be considered complete. So you have all this criteria set at the site level, but you could also go down and view some, I think, some reports. That's something that you were indicating, Chad?
Yeah, yeah, and sorry, just scanning. Lynn actually has a really good question in the chat box.
Sure.
I mean, I like this because you don't have to say they look at everything along the way, right? You can set certain things, right? They pass the quiz, so they didn't download a PowerPoint, they don't fail the course because they didn't check that, assuming you set it up as such. But Lynn makes a good point. If the condition's just set to view, they can click the page, it'll show viewed, but there's no real way to say, did they actually view it or did they just kind of click through? Um, so with the book module, I would, and I don't know if you know this off the top of your head or not, but with the book module, does it, is it again once they open it, it's considered viewed, or does it once they get like to the last page, is it considered viewed? When does the book module throw up that? And
I'd
you might
have
not know,
to,
Ben.
yeah, I'd have to double check to be sure, but I'm fairly confident that the book module would have the option of saying, um, have you viewed the activity? So have you opened it or not? That's I think the criteria that they have there. It has the activity been opened, and that's what they're looking for the book module. So I don't think it tracks all the way to have they viewed 20 pages out of 20 pages. Unfortunately, I don't think it has that granularity built into it. Um,
Okay,
but it
uh,
is.
Nadav, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Nadav, said that he's actually dug through the code of it, and it's actually if you check the last page, so the last page being viewed, which would throw back the completion tracking. So cool,
Okay.
good
Oh,
digging,
that's good to
Nadav.
hear. Yeah.
um, and the lesson, Lynn's asking, how about the lesson resource? Have you worked with the lesson resource much, Ben?
I have. It could be a very complex resource to work with. The nice thing is it does provide you a lot of power when you do start to use it. And this is an activity that offers you graded. It's a graded activity, so you can set that as a completion criteria as the student has to receive a grade before it's considered complete. So it does give you that ability there. So it does um, help ensure that the student's gone through and completed everything within the lesson.
Okay. Any ideas if it's not a graded if the lesson is not a graded activity?
Again, I'm going to um, assume, and I have to double check that if this is fully correct, but if you're not using grades within your lesson, I'm thinking that, again, it's the same criteria as has it been opened, um, and that's the criteria that it's looking for.
Okay. Okay. So we got kind of the core setup. Now, any sort of bugs with completion tracking that you're aware of? I think there were some issues in earlier Moodle 2 releases.
Yeah, there were some issues with some earlier releases of Moodle 2.x or 2.0 to around 2.1, where if completion tracking was enabled and somebody were to use the duplication option for duplicating a resource, it would cause some errors in the loading of the activity, and it would cause some errors when trying to view the activity. So it does have some issues, but I believe those issues have been sorted out with the completion tracking and the newer versions of Moodle 2.x.
All right. So if you're using 2.1 and you clone an activity, it can be a bit of work to scrub and fix that, eh?
It is a big challenge.
Okay. Okay. Um, yeah, I mean, I think we definitely got a little more power users than our BC Moodle group here. Any issues in retrieving learning objects from external repository? I don't know. Does completion tracking work with things if you're pulling, like, let's say, from a Google Doc or some sort of uh, completion tracking?
It might depend on how third party uh, the third party repository functions. So
Yeah.
usually in Moodle, there's two ways a repository works, and that is either it copies the learning resource down to Moodle, and then Moodle uses it from its local copy, or it links to it. And when it links to it, it's probably a different case of how much access it has to the third-party repository. If it allows certain communication to go back and forth, some authentication, it may, but I'm thinking that when it links to it, it might be harder to have completion metrics set, especially when it comes to grading versus the option or the other option of when it just downloads the learning resource and uses a local copy of it from the repository.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, it really kind of does depend on that. So, what did you go on here? This is something that, as a teacher, I would love to see. Where are my students? How far are they? Can I tell? How do you get to this in your Moodle course?
Okay, so if I wanted to see the progress and check out, how the student's doing, I can go to the site navigation block, and from there to my courses, and I see that I have a list of my courses here. I have my Moodle completion course, so you just have to kind of drill down if you have categories set up to your course. And then underneath there, there's a reporting area, and there's a number of different reports available. And the one report I went to here is the activity completion. And you can see that we have a nice list here of what's been completed by what students and what still needs to be complete before they've finished everything. So it's a good tool for teachers, but I believe it's also accessible from a participant's viewpoint too, or it could be enabled if you have reports enabled for your students to go and view some of this information here.
Yeah, that's a big thing that I know we struggled with in 1.9 at my other gig is who is where in the course, and it can involve a lot of digging. So it's great they kind of have that one-page snapshot of who your students are and where they at with your
Yeah,
resource.
it really is a handy report, and you can always download it to your computer using a CSV or Excel compatible format.
Yeah, Todd's got a point here that it could be set up so parents or counselors could also see along the way. Though, I guess you might have to be a little bit careful with privacy sort of things. If you can see that the kid next door is not doing very well, um, there might be some implications in terms of privacy of information. So you want to be careful who you give access to these reports to, just to ensure that you're not violating any sort of legislation around that kind of stuff. Okay, well I think. I well, okay, so let's dig on this a little bit, Todd. So with the access to these reports, can you set that up? Is it by role in your course then that you can say what role has access to these sort of reports?
Yeah, with Moodle having the option or the power to allow you to define roles, new roles, or customize or change the current roles in your system, you could always set up a role that's capable of viewing these reports. If you find that the privilege isn't granted to that role, you could always change the privileges around to grant that permission to that user group or the users with assigned to that role. So it's something that
Okay.
could be configured if it's not there.
Okay. Um, Now is there some sort of course completion block that is available that works in conjunction with this?
But I believe there is, yes. So I'll just go back to my main page here of my
Oh,
course.
Lynn, good segue. I just caught your question in the chat, which pretty much just asked the exact same thing.
And have editing turned on, which is useful for adding new blocks. I'm just going to go through, and you'll see that there's a block here labeled completion tracking status. So I'm just going to add that to my course. And once that's been added, you'll see that we have our completion status tracking block here. And if I were to go in and view the status report, I'm going to click on that really quick. See that there's almost the same report as before, where it just shows what's been going on here, but it just shows the information there. It's from the student's perspective, and we take a look to see what's available to the student when viewing that report. So you'll see from the student's perspective that it's a bit of a different view, right? We see that the status is pending for their course completion, and that's based on all that criteria we set at the course level for when the course is considered complete. but it shows that some of the criteria that's required is a 65% in the course to pass, and that I have to complete a certain amount of activities before it's considered complete also. So it's a handy block for students to see. If they want to, you always go for more details. And this is a handy report too for the student to just view what's going on for them. So you see that.
And so this is based on those conditions you set at the course level, right? This is a course level sort of things that you check that it's showing here as opposed to every resource.
Yeah, exactly. This is at the course level, so.
Okay, well, I think that's a pretty good overview of the course completion. We still got a couple minutes here. Any other questions? Todd, in 1.9, the course completion tracker, the progress bar, also showed red bars for hidden activities. Is there a progress bar for 2x? Does anyone know if this bug has been removed? I know there is a progress bar for 2x because I saw it in an iMoot session late last night. That's how exciting my life is. Saturday night, what I do? I was in iMoot sessions. And it does look like there's been a couple modifications. I'm not sure if they're forks or whatever made, but I saw one where it actually had a star-based system. So as opposed to kind of having sort of negative connotation of, check you've done well or red you are failing. It actually had a kind of star-based system. So, you got the star when you kind of completed it. Kind of like when you're back in grade school, where you get the star on your paper when it's done, good job sort of thing, right? But it looks like Amir just dropped a link there into the chat box. Let's take a peek. Yeah, there we go. So there's the progress bar, and it's various sort of incarnations in color there. Okay, so Ben, I think I'm gonna try to kill your share as we
Oh, please do.
Hold on. Let's see. Share.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen. That should help.
Yeah, there we go. The death switch there. Lynn, we are just starting to use this with students. We're not sure if there's any issues from the user point of view. Have you used this with students, and are there issues from the student point of view that we might be aware of? I can just speak anecdotally about my sort of classroom work, Lynn. Are you talking about the progress bar, or are you talking just about completion tracking in general? I haven't used the progress bar myself. Completion tracking in general. For me, it's been valuable to students to kind of, be able to see where you are, to work through. It does involve you kind of setting up, so it does take that extra time up front. But it does allow to kind of see as people go through. I personally haven't done a lot of the, you can't see resource C until you've completed resource B. But there is a course, and I can try to dig and find it here really quick on the iMoot site, where someone's actually set this up. His live session, he seemed to have a ton of issues. So what he did was actually built a completion tracking based sort of adventure style game course. So, you couldn't go into the next resource till you watch this video. And then you would choose something and unlock a certain set of resources for you. So if you want to kind of get an idea of some best practices on it, there is somewhere in the iMoot land of resources and activities a course that's actually been made where you can kind of try this out. It's not coming to me off the top of my head what the name of that course is, but I will do. I will post a link in our course to his course, if that makes any sense, so that kind of iMoot, share and collaborate. I think it was he had game in his session title. Yeah, there you go. It was John Igler, or Igler. I'm terrible with enunciating names, so but do a dig for that. If you go to the program session, do your Control F. I think Igler will be a unique find on the page. You can go in his course and actually kind of play with a sample one and get your hands dirty with it. Okay, so that gets us pretty much to the end. Again, I think there's some values from a teacher to make sure that students access things the way you want them to upon meeting some learning conditions. Some value for students to see where you are, and for business to have that overview, kind of see, did people actually complete orientation or training before they move on to other activities? Or past that there. Um, Oops, wrong slide. We just did this, but I guess to be honest, we're doing this session again Monday at 4 p.m. our time. Our other session, yeah, wrong slide there for sure. And it's right after this one, same stream, session A. We're doing it on making your Moodle mobile. So we're going to kind of look at how do you set up your Moodle course for mobile access, how certain resources look like on your mobile device, and what things work and what things don't in your Moodle course using the mobile themes. So if you haven't played much with mobile devices for your Moodle course, we're going to give you the 411 on that in about a half hour here, guys. And any other things that come up along the way, Ben and I, our work's done through Lambda Solutions. We're official Moodle partner. Been working with Moodle since 2003. So if you need help, support, hosting, customizations, configurations, we're able to support you. We're based in Vancouver, BC, Canada. A lot of clients go across North America. And we do these sort of webinars as well on a monthly basis. So if you're interested, drop us a line at support@lambdasolutions.net. We can add you to the blast out list for the webinars. And we do them free. We do them once a month. And you can join us for our future webinars that Ben and I do. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
I'll flip the layout back to the lobby style so you can beat the snot out of falling penguins if you want. I'm going to sign out. I'm going to hop into our next webinar room, upload the slides. So I hope to catch some of you guys there in the Making Your Moodle Mobile course. Cheers.
Hey guys, Shane here. Just want to say on behalf of the whole iMoot team, thanks for taking the time out and sharing that with us. Very interesting. Thank you.